Greeting to all YouTube viewers. I am Mackenzie. This video is called The Hamite People of Ham, many of whom are wrapped up in the mentality, psychology, and the philosophy of the Gentile people of what is now known as the land of Europe. Also by the Mohammedan Muslim people of what is now known as the Saudi Arabian people, who has great impact on the mind and life of many Hamite people minds of the world of today, who came from out of their slavery colonial system. My reason for expressing myself this way, it is because many times watching the Nigerian movie on YouTube with many so-called educated people of Nigeria with their European schooling system, many of whom see themselves as the most educated people with various European degrees of their colleges and universities they had received to get a good paying job in their colonial world system of today. So now, many of these educated people of the Nigerian movies treat their fellow Nigerian brothers and sisters who did not have the money and the opportunity to attend any of these European institutions to get their certificate of degrees. To get a good paying job as many of them did. So now, many of these high society Nigerian people of the European system treat their maids, houseboys, and gate boys without any form of respect and dignity because of their money power, and whom they abuse as their slave because these brothers and sisters of theirs are poor and rely upon them to put food on their table. Many of them treat their unfortunate brothers and sisters who came under their household help worse than dogs because their servants are poor. Many of these well-to-do Hamite people of the motherland forget about where they and their ancestors is coming from before many of these well-to-do Nigerians was exposed to the European crooked system that make many of them to become lawyers, judges, and bankers of the European colonial system that they was exposed to. For the people of Europe to make money from their various conquered people who became their citizens and subjects. So now, many of these well-to-do Nigerian and other well-to-do Hamite people of motherland who see themselves as these high-class people and their household help as the low-class people because they do not have the money power as they do. I want to point out to many Hamite people that this so-called high-class, second-class, and third-class people came down from the European colonial slavery days, who did see themselves as high-class people, and many of their captive as the second-class or the third-class people that was based upon the money power. So this European law system that many of their ex-slave people became a part of don't realize that before the European colonial ruling system there was no such a thing where a person must have a lawyer to go before the judge of the European court system to be heard by the judge to defend this person of his or her rights. This law system of the people of Europe came down from the colonial days to make money from their many captives. So, the judge, the lawyers, the police officers all makes money from their captive people going to their court system because that's the way it has been designed. From their many captives who go to their court system by way of the police officer. The way it is set up throughout the European court system, throughout their colonies, a person who goes to the court system by way of the police officer must have to have a lawyer to defend their rights or wrong, because these court laws and rules of the European people court system was cleverly put together that the average person of their colonies cannot easily understand the court rules and laws so as to represent themselves in the court system. So a person who goes to the court must have to have money to pay their lawyers and the court, who has their interests at heart and who is not prejudiced to seek justice for his client. Otherwise, they will not get freedom and justice from the court, because the only way a person can get justice and freedom from the court, they must have money to pay their lawyers and the court. Otherwise, they will go to prison until they have money to pay, because the way it is set up in the European court system that came down from the colonial days, one must have money to pay the lawyer and the court to get freedom and justice. To give one an idea of the European law court system that came down from the European colonial days, that do as its effect on our minds and life of many of the captive people of today. According to History of the West Indian People, Book 2, on this island that became known as Haiti and Santo Domingo, that was named before by Columbus as Hispaniola, that meant Little Spain to Columbus. A part of this island of Haiti was taken away by the French and their pirates and became known as Saint Dominic. On this part of the island of Saint Dominic, there was a Negro Hamite slave by the name of Toussaint, who became a part of the leaders of the slave uprising for freedom from their French slave masters. Toussaint was born a slave, and his forefathers were African chiefs from the land of Ham that became known as West Africa. According to History of the West Indian People, Toussaint was a very intelligent and trustworthy person, who his master gave him charge over the other Hamite slaves. Toussaint's father was given the chance to learn to read and write in the French language by a French Jesuit priest that they did classify as educated. According to the Webster Collegiate Dictionary, the word Jesuit priest was a religious organization of 1534 AD that was taken from the name Jesus of what became known as Christianity that came down from the people of Europe. I also want to mention that the word educated that is so loosely used in our colonial world of today as the educated people. According to the Webster Collegiate Dictionary, the word educated people came from the Latin word educatus, which simply means to bring up a child, to develop a child mentally and morally. So, I just thought I may bring out what the word educated really means from the dictionary point of view. That has nothing to do with the way many people were brainwashed in the various school systems that came down from the people of Europe to see themselves as the educated people because they went to this European college or this university and get their degrees, a certificate. So the word educated simply means to be able to read and write, which have nothing to do with the true education, which simply means to gain knowledge of Yahweh, His laws and His commandments, because our life depends upon gaining knowledge of Yahweh, of how we are to live our life to please Him, that it may go well with us. These people who keep His laws and commandments, to show the importance of how we as people have to take in knowledge of Yahweh and His laws and commandments. There at Ecclesiastes chapter 12, reading from verse 1, there the chapter went on to say, "Remember now your Creator in the days of your youth, while the evil days come not." And the only way a person can remember his Creator is to be able to read and write and take in knowledge and understanding from his word, the scripture. So according to history of the West Indian people, although Toussaint's father were not able to buy his son from out of slavery, he was able to teach him to speak, write, and read in the French language. So my reason for writing about Toussaint and his father is to show that from the slavery days to our present time of the court system of the people of Europe, the only way a person can get freedom and justice in their system, and that is if they have money to pay the lawyers, the court system, the bail bond people, the probation officer, and other officers of the court system to get justice or freedom. Otherwise, there will be no justice and no freedom to be given without money to be paid. So many Hamite people of the land of Ham, of their court system that came down from the people of Europe, who see themselves as lawyers, barristers, and judges of the high-class people of the European system that they had set up during the slavery colonial days to suit themselves. So now, many of these aristocratic people of the Nigerian and other countries of the land of Ham, of the European colonial system, treat their poor unfortunate brothers and sisters with such punity and disrespectfulness because they are now enjoying the fruit of the colonial era. Many of these lawyers, barristers, and judges of the Nigerian law system have no true knowledge of how the law system of Nigeria and in other countries of the land of Ham came about, apart from many of their students who went to Europe, the United States, and Canada to study their law system that originally came from Europe to their overseas colonies that became known as the United States and Canada. After these students graduated from these European law schooling systems, they take back these European law schooling system of the people of Europe to Nigeria and other countries of the land of Ham to oppress their poor brothers and sisters of these law system of the people of Europe. Before the European law system that is governed the land of Ham today, the people of the land of Ham were mostly ruled and governed by their chief kings and their elders, and there were no such a thing where a person must have to pay a lawyer to take his case before the judge to be heard, so as to get freedom and justice from the court. Also, there were no rent-paying system and homeless people living on the street or under some bridge in the land of Ham because they cannot afford to pay the European rent system and are suffering living on the street that brought about many sadness in the land of Ham to see. Before all this European rent and tax paying system came about in the land of Ham, all the various tribes used to live together as a family group, living from off the land as how Yahweh did make life to be, without all of this tax and rent paying pressure that many of these people cannot afford to pay in order to have somewhere to live. This rent and tax paying system in the land of Ham came down from the people of Europe to their various colonies to make money from their various captives. I also want to point out that I was watching a video documentary on YouTube about some Dutch settlers of South Africa who for some unknown reason became poor and destitute, living in various parts of South Africa in tents. I must say that it's very sad to see the condition of many of these Dutch settlers who their ancestors left from Holland with their guns and went to what became known as South Africa to kill off and to oppress many of the natives who did not get killed off and take away their land and their cattle. Many of these natives who did survive from their brutality and slavery did not have the right to walk and breathe in their own Yahweh given land that were given to many of the native of the era, many of whom they walk upon, spat upon, and many of whom they did treated less than human beings in their own native land. Also, many of these Dutch settlers did scrape up the riches of South Africa to send to Holland to make the country of Holland a very rich country from the commodity of South Africa. So, it should be in the interest of the Dutch government to send out ships to South Africa to repatriate many of these Dutch settlers who are living in various parts of South Africa back to the land of Holland from where their ancestors came from before, so that many of these Dutch settlers of South Africa who are living in various parts can have a better life living among their own people of Holland. This should not be a hard thing for the Dutch government to do for their own people, just like how they did send out ships to scrape up many of the native Hamite people of South Africa to send them away to the overseas colonies as slaves for the right price of slave laborers. It is also mentioned in the scripture that whatsoever a man sow, that shall he also reap. My reason for mentioning what the scripture said, it is because these Dutch settlers of South Africa have sown so many wickedness to the various natives of South Africa in taking away their lands and corrupt the mind of many of these people of South Africa with all sort of sexual immorality, wickedness. I must also point out that when Yahweh get up off his throne, he's going to judge the corruptors and the followers alike. And there will be no plea bargain, but every man that sucked the sour grape, his own teeth will set an edge. So in other words, every man will have to give an account to Yahweh for his own deeds and action. Thank you, YouTube, for giving me this opportunity to bring out this video on your site. And I do hope that it may bring benefit to many people's mind of many of the things that I have written and come to know about, because many of these things are not known. So again, thank you very much. Take care.